Today's design build market analysis that we're going to be looking at has been a long time coming, and we're really glad to be here to break down these impressive findings for you today. I'm joined by research author Paul Trombitas, who's an analyst at the highly respected FMI Corporation. Paul is going to give you the details on these findings, but first, I'm here to talk a little bit about why it matters, because this isn't just an industry insider story. This impacts communities throughout our nation and their ability to build, rebuild, and maintain the infrastructure and building resources we need to thrive. This research shows how design build is changing the way we build. Design build has transitioned from what used to be considered an alternative delivery process not so many years ago to the preferred delivery method for a growing number of public and private owners. Why the change? Because the old ways simply aren't working. Collaboration and innovation are delivering better projects that also achieve cost and schedule savings, which is especially important as cash-strapped states and communities have to do more with less. Design Build delivers successful projects in all sizes, sectors, and regions. That's because in Design Build, the designer and contractor work together from the beginning as a team, providing unified project recommendations to fit the owner's schedule and budget. Any changes are addressed by the entire team, leading to collaborative problem solving and innovation, not excuses or blame shifting. While single source contracting is the fundamental difference between design build and the old ways, equally important is the culture of collaboration inherent in design build. There are thousands of successful design build projects underway, from iconic infrastructure like the Mario M. Cuomo Bridge to college campuses, small businesses, industrial, healthcare, airports, mass transit, and more than we could possibly list today. Today's research shows success breeds success because owners who deliver high-value design-build projects don't want to go back to the old ways. The proof is in the data, and let's dig into those numbers. I introduce you to Paul Trombitas with FMI. Paul has been working on this research since 2017 and can give you a deeper look at design-build's place in the construction market. Paul?
Hi, Lisa, and thank you very much for that introduction. And it's been really over the past year has been a great process, and our research has really had a lot of great findings, and really wanted to share with you all today a high-level overview of those findings. And really to start, I wanted to give you a little bit of background on the process that we used in order to achieve these results. So the results of this study really were developed over the past year, utilizing a combination of research methods. These methods include an industry-wide survey where we had over 100 respondents, market interviews, which we conducted over 80 market interviews, and then development of a forecast model. And the development of the forecast model that FMI has put together, this really involves what we call a triangulation method. And that utilizes multiple sources to really develop and validate the market size and direction, particularly, really specifically for design build. And it's the three areas that we focus in on developing this market model are a quantitative market model, which is utilizing historic and forecast data where we develop a baseline of construction put in place spending and really getting down to the local level for each various segments that we examined. And so when I'd say segments, those are your religious, communication, lodging, healthcare, transportation, and markets are the geography. So your Northeast, Midwest, West Coast, Pacific. And so that after we've developed that quantitative market model, the next step is our anticipated project examination. So we utilize our own proprietary project database from the 60 years of our client projects, as well as just combining multiple secondary sources such as READ, IIR, Dodge, and a number of other project databases, and building allowing us to really put in potential and future planned projects, and we use that to influence the likelihood of occurrence and how the spending will occur over the next 5 years. And then after we've developed the project examination, we use what we say market validation. So that's really getting out into the industry and speaking with individuals that are doing these projects, both owners, contractors, designers, engineers, subcontractors, and getting a localized feel for what's really occurring in the market. And so to get started with the research, we looked at the combined market, what we're calling, it has highway, street, water, wastewater, commercial, manufacturing, transportation, office, educational, communication, and other, which is public safety. And so taking a look at this chart here, on your left-hand side, what we're putting as the largest circle is total U.S. construction spending from 2008 to 2021. In that next circle, that middle circle, is what percentage that represents for our assessed segments. So that, again, will be your manufacturing, educational, so on. And then the smaller circle is the design build spending in those particular segments. So when you break down all of that and look at over the 2018 to 2021 time period, design build is anticipated to account for 44% of construction spending. That's a sizable percentage. And you look at where that breaks out to. On the right-hand side, we're looking at the segments and the markets, and we can see that manufacturing, educational, and highway, street really represent a sizable percentage, really at 45%, a little over 45% of the spending over that time period for design build. And then we'll look at the markets. The South Atlantic, Pacific are really the two largest that we see. So they're about 37% of the market spending. So there's really particular areas that, based on construction spending and projects, where we see a lot of activity, and overall the outlook is very positive and strong in that the design build representing 44% of spending over the next 4 or 5 years. And so looking at a year-by-year basis, from 2013 to 2021, we can see that 2013 to 2017 had a very, very strong increase. And really that was driven by the expansion in the market and really economic recovery continuing. And from 2018 to 2021, we continue to see that growth. And really from 2018 to 2021, design build is anticipated to grow at 18%. That is a significant growth rate. And on a year-over-year basis, from 2018 to 2021, it's 6% annual. And if we look at construction in the same segments for that time period, just overall construction, it's only at 4%. So design build is growing faster than the overall marketplace. And the other thing to take into consideration is not only is design growing on a year basis, but as a percentage of spending, it consistently gains share as a growing delivery method utilized. So starting in 2013 and going all the way to 2021, we're going from roughly under 40% to over 44% in 2021 on a yearly basis. So really, as owners become more familiar and contractors are pushing this process forward, you see we've seen and talked and heard to about just the significant growth of design build in specific. And so taking a more granular look at where this is occurring and where that spending is growing most at, we broke it down by the 9 census divisions. So these are the spending in each of these divisions is a combination of all the assessed segments. And what we see is in the Mountain, the Pacific, and the South Atlantic markets, design build construction spending is over 6%. It's a very strong market. And you think about the owners here, the contractors, they're all gaining the experience and really have the knowledge base to be successful, and have shown that design build is an extremely effective and efficient way to deliver their projects and programs overall. And really the quote that Lisa mentioned earlier, that it's no longer an alternative, and that is absolutely true. And through our interviews, we heard it on a consistent basis that design build represents the majority of construction programs in some large owners, just purely based on the ability to deliver in a quicker time span, and really the benefits associated with utilizing design build. So taking a look just at the segment spending, so from 2018 to 2021, we see that the highest growing market is actually healthcare at 7.1%. Next up being highway, street, and then behind that, it's manufacturing. And really manufacturing seeing a pretty strong growth overall in the construction market, particularly in automotive and light manufacturing. Those owners are utilizing design build 80-90% of the time. Very strong use of design build and favorable outcomes. And since really early 2000s, it was noted that design build has been really a delivery method of choice, and will continue to do so. But you see its continuing growth. And then highway, street, as owners programs are expanding, and the use of design build has really become not an alternative, but a way to effectively deliver these projects that are needed in a timely fashion. Is certainly showing strong growth. And so we looked at not only design build, but how does design build compare from 2013 to 2017, and then looking at the forecast 2018 to 2021 as the percentage of construction spending. So in 2000, from the historic time span, it was roughly 39% of construction spending. And then looking over towards 2018, 2021, the forecast period, it's growing to 44%, really taking share from both really design bid build and a small percentage from CMGC, CMAR. And overall, what we see the trend is just the use of alternative delivery methods in general is growing and will continue to do so, and particularly design build as projects become more complex, need to be delivered in a expedited fashion. And at the bottom of the graph, you can see that really the dissatisfaction with that almost contentious relationship that design bid build or low bid pricing creates, and doesn't allow for the innovation and early collaboration and identification of really effective solutions to deliver projects, as well as just kind of a wanting to have the best product delivered to a client. And that really facilitates the use of design build. And so that's the overview for the total market. Now it's going to take a dive into the non-residential market. So we're not looking at highway, street, or water, wastewater in this section. And what we see here is overall construction spending in non-residential, reaching slightly over 550 billion by 2020. Growth rate little bit under 4%. Maintained, it's still growth continues, but when we look at design build, it has grown as a percentage of construction spending, particularly non-residential, at a very strong pace, representing about 45% of non-residential construction spending over the forecast period. So over that 2018 to 2021 time period, 990 billion spending in design build, and really the leading sectors: education, manufacturing, commercial, office, and the same geographic regions being the South Atlantic, Pacific, Mid-Atlantic, and those areas growing. And here we see the similar breakout, what from 2013, the historical use of design build, still a higher percentage at 42, but growing to 45% over the forecast period. So really continuing to gain market share over the forecast period. And this slide here showing the growth for design build on a year-by-year basis, and particularly looking at 2018 to 2021, anticipated growth of 17%. In thinking about overall growth is 18%, and why it in non-residential 17, it's mainly driven by it's a higher number, so the growth is not as strong because it's reached such a higher percentage. So really the factors influencing design build and non-residential continue, and it's going to continue to remain a strong percentage of overall spending there, which is great, and a big thanks. And you have to say DBIA has done a great job of really pushing this in the marketplace, and you can see that in the growth of spending across the year-over-year range. So the trends and drivers were a combination of the survey and the interview. And so one of the main questions we wanted to identify and really get data around was what's really influencing owners and their ability to select a project delivery method. What characteristics are most influential? And really what stood out was delivery schedule, ensuring that method was aligned with their goals and objectives, cost, and then the experience of firms participating in the market. And really looking at what we heard and what design build does extremely well is the ability to deliver projects in an expedited fashion, the ability to have the contractor, the designer, the engineer involved early with the owner to collaborate and identify really those key goals and objectives to ensure that the needs of the stakeholders are all met and that the most value is derived out of the product that's delivered. So looking at what's important to owners when they're selecting, it's absolutely aligned with what design build is doing and what it's delivering, furthermore driving continued use of the method. And really in addition to what's important for owners is really the education process with stakeholders in the market as it relates to design build and improving the knowledge base and understanding of the benefits associated with design build and what value can be derived by utilizing it. And once owners are getting a full understanding of really the process and the benefits, they're more than likely going to continue to employ it as a preferred method. That was heard over and over again and seen through the survey data and just the market in general, as consistent use builds familiarity and understanding of what are the critical success factors for delivering these projects, and it allows owners to have private or private market expertise come in and assist with delivering these projects and really deriving that value. And looking at DBIA really driving forward the knowledge base, hosting numerous education classes and really successful owners as well as contractors identified the design build certification as is very important in assisting in developing the knowledge base and having that in-house expertise to really drive it forward. And looking at the perspective in the next 5 years, what market participants believe they will see an increase. And overall, alternative deliveries and specifically design build show a pretty strong increase in terms of what's going to be used in the next 5 years to either what are contractors how are they going to deliver projects, or how are owners looking to have their programs and projects delivered. It's very clear here that is the anticipated delivery method that will be used. Looking at experience here, this is a fantastic representation of what we heard as well, in that design build having the highest score across delivery methods, and when asking owners how their experience with design build or the various delivery methods, how their experience throughout the process in design build had the highest percentage of excellent and very good, and there was no one said poor. And that's certainly, as we mentioned and discussed earlier, why it's driven and grown at such a significant rate is that the experience has been strong, it's delivered to expectation, and really the value being derived is what stakeholders want, and it's really delivering kind of this full package. Taking a look at the highway, street, and wastewater market. Again, starting out with the market sizing, we see that over the forecast period, design build will represent roughly slightly over 200 billion over that time period. Highway, street compared to water, wastewater is going to be the significant percentage, but overall, if you look at total construction, highway, streets fairly a larger segment, so it breaks out fairly similarly looking at total construction. But the strongest growth markets here are really what's representing a sizable portion is the South Atlantic, the Pacific, and the mountain. So those similar geographies are really driving the construction growth for design build. Looking at a year-over-year growth and spending for design build. Now here we see from 2018 to 2001 a 21% increase. So a lot of the growth is coming from highway, street, and water, wastewater, which is not. We hear and you see a significant number of owners using design build as more than 50% of their program spending. So it's not surprising to see such a strong growth rate and a good outlook over the next 5 years, mainly because it's certainly just growing, and the use of it is very strong, and it's very favorable market conditions as products become more complex. The experience is growing, so not only is it a delivery method for over $500 million projects, it's getting down to 25, even as low as 10 million, where owners are utilizing it on projects. So it's not only one large project method, it's really covering the full spectrum, and the experience from owners and contractors alike see it in that light and are utilizing it much more on the smaller size of projects. looking at the breakout of design build compared to historic and forecast, the largest change was in this sector in highway, street, and water wastewater from about 31% historically to 40% over the next 5 years. So a strong growth in use in design build. And really the drivers here being schedule. Owners are able to, the urgency of delivering these projects is pushed forward, able to accelerate their timelines. It was noted that up to 12 months, 13 months before anticipated schedule. So really top of mind is the ability to deliver these projects in that expedited fashion is a huge benefit. Project complexity, as that continues to grow, owners are more likely to go towards design build. Size, and then outside expertise and staff experience. Really those 5 key areas are driving use of design build in the water, wastewater, and highway, street market. And lastly is the size of projects. As I mentioned earlier, we see a higher number of projects under 25 million, really under 150 million, going towards design build as familiarity with the method grows, just continuing the trend of greater utilization just across the board. And Lisa, that is the conclusion of our overview.
Well, thank you, Paul. You have a few minutes for questions if folk have them?
I do.
Okay.
Unmuted.
We've unmuted folks, so please feel free to throw out any questions you might have. Okay, no questions? Region leaders, you can feel free to ask questions as well.
I do have a question from a regional perspective. This is Dustin Beatty from the Ohio Valley region. Are we free to publish and use the information in this study, or is there a process to getting that approved before we would?
No, you're completely free to use this information. It's on our website. People can download it, so feel free, Dustin.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And also, Kim just reminded me, we're going to have a recording of this webinar that will get out to the regions, just in case you need to refresh yourself on some of Paul's statistics and data that he went over in this webinar. Any other questions? If you think of any, feel free to email us here at DBIA. If we can't answer it, we can certainly get to Paul and the FMI team. But with that, I thank you all for joining us today, and thank you, Paul, very much. This is an exciting time for DBIA and the design build industry. If you have any questions, email us, call us, and we hope to see you in New Orleans at our conference.